mentioning that Jed said they'd be perfectly fine keeping Jimmy Garoppolo this year on Tim Kawakami's podcast. But of course, what he said was he is leaving it up to John and Kyle to do whatever it is that they want to do.
Are you talking about the one that I haven't listened to the one he just talked to Tim?
Yeah.
Did you listen to that?
No, I saw the quote yesterday.
He had told Tim that if we have to, we'll keep him. So
whatever John and Kyle want to do, if they want to keep Jimmy, that'll be fine with me.
That's what we opened up the podcast talking about it. Like I would have said that. I think there's a chance right now. They're probably not to the plane yet, but whenever they get to the plane and Kyle pours himself a stiff one and pulls up his iPad to watch the game, he'd be like, "I'll just roll Brock."
Yeah, maybe he thought that a month ago, and now he's like, upgrade.
I'm kind of kidding, but I'm not really. I'm not saying that he thinks Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy. But if you just said, "Hey, would you just roll with this guy for the next couple of years and worry about this Jimmy Garoppolo and factoring in his money?" He's like, "Yeah, totally. Purdy."
Yep. Like if I get I can get a certain percentage out of him now and actually just have him be my backup quarterback for a while.
Do you think there's definitely over the last, let's just pick 10 days. So multiple games, joint practices, he thinks dramatically different about just worst case scenario, keeping Jimmy Garoppolo, and now with Purdy and just his whole mindset on the squad? Is there
maybe? Yeah, that he just trusts Purdy. Or I mean, if Sudfeld were to beat out Purdy, then clearly he would trust him. Yeah, I mean, like Jimmy has been to two NFC championship games in a Super Bowl. So there is an element of these guys have not been in those battles before. But I do think if you're watching them going, how much of this translates? Could it possibly be? And I think he's so confident in his own ability of like, I've won games with so many guys. I'm not worried about it. So yes, I think he probably is more comfortable today than he was a month ago with that.
You tipped me off to the interview where Brandon Marshall, and I watched it a couple days ago. I was eating dinner and just, it was 15 minutes. He was in his office. Two things jumped out to me. One, where Marshall, was that the one you were talking about where Marshall was messing with him about Sean McVay, talking shit about him, and then even Brandon laughs that it wasn't true, and because Kyle was like kind of taken back.
Yeah.
And he said he thinks Jimmy Garoppolo is the best 49er quarterback since Steve Young, which Jeff Garcia feel was pretty damn good.
Kyle said this or Marshall said this?
Kyle said this.
Okay.
And the other thing, have you ever heard Kyle say the word Mac Jones?
I feel like I've heard him say Mac.
He said
but
that
you don't
Brandon
think he said it before?
I don't remember him specifically saying like we were down to two quarterbacks. He said two quarterbacks, but I don't think he ever named them. And then Brandon goes, "Well, who was the second quarterback?" He said Mac. I don't think I've ever heard him say the name
recently.
Well, he said it to Brandon Marshall.
Yeah, okay. He's on the record now. There's no debate.
He's definitely said two quarterbacks, and we figured it out a long time ago. I just don't ever remember saying we were down to two quarterbacks when we made the trade. He said that obviously after the fact, but and then has he ever said the two quarterbacks were Mac and Trey Lance?
I thought he said Mac, but maybe not. I can't source it. So remember, John, I reported. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it, which is interesting because like Fields, I've watched some of the Bears preseason. Like there's some like watching. I like watching Justin Fields play. I enjoy watching Justin Fields play more than I enjoy watching Mac Jones play.
100%.
But that's a whole other conversation. I mean, it's interesting that he put himself on that. He's kind of put himself on Mac Jones now too, right? Like who turns out better? What if Fields turns out better than both of them? It's like, damn, Kyle, you weren't even. You're on neither one.
Yeah, like he's come out and said like we realized this relatively quickly once it was well established. It was the two guys, and you can kind of figure it out. And now it's like he's gone on a record saying the names. I mean, they got one of them literally on the team.
Yeah,
they just did like Kyle clearly just did not like Justin Fields at Ohio State, right?
Yep.
Like he would never have made that trade for Justin Fields.
Nope. And somebody on the Niners told me that the Friday after, and I said it, and people were offended. I remember having birdies tell me like Justin Fields, now looking back, like, yeah, he wasn't even in the mix. This was the quote to Kawakami. I've said this before. You can't have enough good quarterbacks and football players. This is Jed talking. I'm not going to get into roster discussions and what John and Kyle want to do, but I will support them in any sort of anything that they want to do to make this team as good as they can. But I've said it before. We're happy to keep Jimmy. We're happy to have him on the roster. If that's the case, then that's the case. Like, Jimmy, you actually get in a locker. Jimmy like, what? I kind of like just practicing by myself and leaving for the day.
Do you think Jimmy's any more less likely, like the Purdy Sudfeld situation impacts his release date?
Like the
Or is
Niners
that
are more likely to just whatever.
Is that just completely separate? It's still value.
I think it's separate. The only way it's connected is if there was always this, we're never going to give him away until the last minute just in case Trey gets hurt. But if they think Brock Purdy can give them 75, well, I don't know. Like 75% of Jimmy, if you're trying, if something were to happen to Trey, getting only 70%, 75 or 80% of Garoppolo is not enough.
Well, there's absolutely no chance Brock Purdy's better than Jimmy Garoppolo today. Absolutely. It's impossible.
Right. Well, so, but you're trying to go to the playoffs. So 80% of Jimmy is not necessarily a playoff quarterback, right? Because even Jimmy, it's kind of depends on the day.
I think we have to acknowledge guys get hurt whenever. The likelihood of him getting traded at this point is closer to 0 than it is like 10%, right?